To start off, let me introduce myself. I'm Narendra. I work for a company called Booking.com in Amsterdam. How many of you have used Booking.com for your stay here? That's a lot. People who didn't use it, please give it a try. It's pretty cool. And the image on the right, I just thought I'll show off my photography skills. That's something which I clicked on my way to office, which is a 15 minutes commute by walk. You might know me from internet for posting some of these animations, which I keep doing on my free times, using React Native, Expo, gesture handling, pan responders, animated, and all of those things which I started off. To give you a bit of a backstory, I think it's been a year since I've been doing this, and it is all because of one live stream which I watched by Eric, who is here. And I don't think I would have done any of this animation without Eric's live stream. So thank you, Eric, for doing what you did. And probably, like me, you probably motivated a lot of other people as well. So thank you. Yes, is the slide changing? Yes. So I'm going to talk about A/B testing. How many of you know what A/B testing is? That's almost everyone. How many of you use A/B testing on your day-to-day? Nice. I hope after this talk, people who didn't raise your hands for using A/B testing would go back and start using A/B testing in your product. So to give you a definition for for people who don't know what A/B testing is, A/B testing is a process of running an experiment to optimizing a customer experience, keeping business metric as the primary one. So whatever changes you do on your websites, it could be a UI change, it could be a new features, it could be any technical one. The end goal is to improve customer experience, and by doing that, you want to improve the business metrics, which could be getting more bookings for Booking.com, and it could be something else for you. So that's the definition of A/B testing. A small example, let's say you have two versions of your homepage, A and B, where here, as you can see, it's just the button which is changing. And you're going to divide that into two different users, and show the users a two versions. So what happens is, after a while, you run this experiment. It could be for 1 week, for 2 weeks, based on how much users you have. You get a metrics, and you see which one performed better. So it could be a primary metric where say how many people made the bookings. So you see which one did perform better, and that stays to be for everyone. So we call it full on in our terms, but what it means is that variant which has one, you would show it to all the users. So why A/B testing? That's a very good question, because most of the time, whoever is here, we are wrong about what we think is good for the users. I would say all of us here are wrong most of the time, right? What we actually think is good for the users may not be true, because when we use our app, we use from a different perspective, right? And we are not the majority of the user base of our product. So A/B testing really helps you to understand from the user's perspective. So by that I mean that the end user would be the people who would take a decision whether the feature would stay in your app or not. We want our features to be profitable. So a product should improve, and it should improve in the way that it serves the business needs. So the end goal, we have to pay our bills, we need some money, so whatever you do has to, at the end of the day, make some money, right? So it comes from the same aspect. What you think would make money for the company or for the business may not be true, right? So by A/B testing, it really helps you to test your product directly to the users, and to know whether it really worked from the user's perspective. We want customer sentiment to drive product development. So by that I mean that if a customer likes something about your product, we give them more of that, and if they don't, you give them less of that. So the only way to know that is to put things in front of the users and to know whether it really works. And another thing is, we want to make a product decision based on the fact. By fact, I mean that it could not be a situation where your product owner, your manager, your CEO comes and tells this logo has to be bigger, right? There has to be certain reason on why you're doing it. And that could be only done when you measure a certain impact on any of your changes, right? So there is no gut feeling. There is no feeling that, okay, this may do better. There's only on a data where you say that, okay, this will do better. So you make product decision on certain older experiments, on certain facts, and based on that, you run A/B testing. And for very important, A/B testing is done to learn. Learning is done on many levels. Learning your product, learning your users, learning their behaviors, learning how the process works, right? So maybe the experiment which you ran for a button may not go full on, may not be given to all the users, but you also learn other things like did it actually give a better click-through? So in that case, you got to do something else in the other pages. So A/B testing is also seen as to learn in every aspect. So when I say why A/B testing, I think I should talk about why not A/B testing. One important thing is that if you don't have enough users in your product, there could be a chance that you could skew your results. So to give an example, like if I'm on base and coffee cup from my table just drops, right? That's something you can't control. And there could be a situation where you see that the base users converted less. Because you have less users, it could be to 5 or 10 users, you don't really see an impact. But by that, I would also say that A/B testing will be used to get more data, which means that you understand how the particular product has been performed and not really take decisions if you have less traffic, right? But it helps you understand and learn about your product. Your success metric is ill-defined. So by that I mean we need key metrics for any A/B testing, which means for example, Booking.com, it's a very simple metrics. We get more bookings and less cancellation, right? But if your product does not have that main metric, it could be very tricky where you'll have a page full of data and metrics, and you will be looking into see which one makes sense, which one has improved, some things should have improved, some things wouldn't have improved. So there should always be that one metric with which you would say that if this goes bad, I'm not gonna give this to all the users, right? So, or if this goes good, that is when I don't care about other stuff, I'll put it on and then I will look for other metrics to improve. And more importantly, if you like being an expert. Because most of the time you'll be wrong, and if you like being an expert, which will not be a good thing, because you won't look good and you look like an idiot. But luckily for you, everyone in your team would look like an idiot. So yeah, that's another main reason I would say why you should not do an A/B testing if you like being an expert. I spoke about what A/B testing is, why and why not. So let me just go into the process of A/B testing. There are multiple ways. So you have your gut feeling, you go on, you start an experiment and do it. But there's a procedure we follow. And by that I mean is that you start with an hypothesis. By hypothesis, I mean it's something like an idea. Actually, I had a problem on this slide is because I was thinking, should I add a double equal to negation or a single equal to? Because idea and hypothesis are the same type, but not really same. But then I ended up going with the double equal to. So ideas are cheap. Ideas are easy. Ideas does not come with any limitation. So one of our principal designer at Booking always says ideas are like the fart in the wind. Hypotheses are always in core aspect grounded in reality with the business metrics. So it inherently the main requirement of hypothesis is to prove something or to disprove, right? So when you have an idea, try to align your idea saying that I am doing certain things to the user. By doing that, I assume that this is what would happen, and I see the metrics of X would increase or metrics Y would decrease. So you got to be clear on why you're doing certain test, and that would really help you to take a decision after a few weeks when the data for the experiment comes on. Once you have the hypothesis, you define a metric, right? So like I was mentioning that metric for us, it's very simple. And for any e-commerce company, it could be very simple as you make more money, you sell more stuff. So you have to have a main metrics for your experiment saying that this is my main metric which I will look into. And there could be two kinds of metrics. One we call it as shallow metrics, where we say that I changed a button. By that I mean that there will be more signups. And there's another deep metric where you say that you get more signups and the user end up making something else, right? User end up making more bookings. It depends on what kind of experiments you run. You can have only shallow metrics or deep metrics, but it's very important to keep your experiment grounded to your company's business needs. After that, it's pretty simple. You got to design it and implement it and wrap it within an experiment. That is, if it's a base, then provide the older version. If the user is in the variant, provide the new version, right? And once you start, and after a few weeks, you run the experiment, and then you analyze the data which you get, and you learn from it, right? Most of the times, what happens is the first run which you run an experiment is most likely a very weak hypothesis. So once you run the first time, your hypothesis gets stronger because you get to learn how your experiment has performed, and then you improve, right? And as you go, your hypothesis becomes stronger and stronger because you're understanding your customer better. And I think that's the cycle. So you build, you measure, learn, and you build again based on what you learned. And I think this is the fact, right? Most of the times, what we think is right for the users may not be right. And this I've been repeating since the beginning. We have a saying where we say that 90% of our tests fail. But this metrics can actually be improved by doing earlier user research and getting your hypothesis stronger and then running the experiment. But also it slows down the process that you're working on certain idea. If it's a small change, it's better to push it directly to the user and see how it performed instead of going through the user research and coming. But again, it works on both the ways. Certain processes work, for certain features, one process work, and for something else the other. And the biggest problem when it fails is you don't know why it failed, and that's the most frustrating part. And it's very important, that's why it's very important to have other metrics along with your key metrics to understand what happened. Like, did the page performance increase? Did the bounce rate increase? Did the user drop off at certain pages? Then it's very important to have other metrics which will help you understand how the user behaved and not just look at the key metrics also. Key metrics is to take your decision, the final call. To give you an example, I'll just show you the page experiment which we ran a while back at Booking. This is the search result page for Wrocław on the same day for the conference which I was looking for in the tablet version. So earlier, the images shown in the search result page was 150 pixel square on the tablet screen. But one of the designer in Booking thought that, okay, the quality of the image is bad. We need to run an experiment on that to see if we improve the quality of the image, can we get more bookings, right? So there were a couple of variations of ideas running through, and the ideas was to improve the image by 200, 300, or 500. So then we decided to run this experiment with 500 pixel on the variant, the square image, and the base as 150 pixel. We ran this experiment for a few weeks with A and B. So yeah, just a question. How many people think A performed better? Okay, very few. How many people think B performed better? Okay. How many people think we didn't get any result? You're all right. It was neutral. And that's the most frustrating part, right? So you don't know whether the new change which we thought is good for the user is really good for the user, and people do really care about the images or not, right? But luckily, we were tracking some other metrics as well. And what actually happened was the page load of search result page increases. And that kind of normalized our bookings, because for the number of, there are approximately 10 images, 10 results in each page. And the page load of that, to load those images, kind of increased the page load, and because of which more bookings which we got kind of reduced because people saw it later and stuff like that. So we reran this experiment, and we reran it with 300 pixels as base to see if it improves from what we have. How many people think A did better now? Okay, very few. Nice. How many people think B did better? Okay. How many people think we still didn't get any answer? Okay, there are a few. Actually, B won. So finally, there is something, right? Now, to come up to this was not our first hypothesis. What I'm saying here is most of the times your first hypothesis would be weak because you're still trying to understand. And as you go, your hypothesis gets stronger and you are more confident on why you're making a certain change. Okay, so you have the process, but A/B testing in web and native works in a very different process, right? To give you a bit of an overview, in web, it's pretty simple. On morning, you have an idea, you speak to your manager, you build it. By afternoon, you deploy it. By evening, by the end of the day, you already have a user, right? So the process is very quick. But in native, it's more frustrating because let's say the idea process starts at the same time. Morning, you have an idea, you build it, you speak. By afternoon, you have already built the feature, but then based on your company's policies, it could be 1 week to 2 week your app submission cycle. You will have to wait for 2 weeks to really see that app to go through, for your change to go through. And then you wait for 2 to 3 days for it to be reviewed based on various cases, and sometimes it can get rejected, but I'm not considering that. And after it gets accepted, you wait for 2 to 3 days again to wait for it to be stable. And then you get your users. So that approximately takes 3 weeks. And in 3 weeks, a lot of things can change. First of all, your hypothesis itself can change. For the reason why you started this experiment, you'll no longer be the same thing, right? You would already have a better hypothesis. And worst case, let's say you have a bug in your experiment, and then you have to start this process all over again. So in native, it's a little tricky, but with code push and things, updates on the air, like the talk yesterday, this can be improved. But generally speaking, this is how it's been done. So let me just go more into how we A/B test and how the process works in mobile. Let's say you have your mobile app downloaded. I mean, you push it to the users, the app is downloaded, and app is installed in the phone. And when the app is opened, during the splash screen, that is when you request the animation settings. Sorry, I'm still talking about animation. You request the experiment settings, right? And the experiment settings is a JSON object, it could be, which tells what all the experiments are running currently for the product. And you get all these different kinds of variants from the server. And based on that, your entire app has been changed. So what I'm saying here is you need to calculate how long your splash screen could be, because end of the day, you're running A/B testing for user experience. So it's good that you don't run A/B testing so that the A/B testing would spoil your user experience. So it's very important. Well, sorry, this slide is for me. To give a bit of backstory, apparently my mom watches my talk, and I don't drink enough water while I'm talking, and I'm tired at the end of the talk, so I just drink some water. Yeah, anyone else can drink some water as well. Yeah. Yes, so I was talking about getting the experiment settings when the splash screen has been loaded, so that when the user is just opening your app, you get the settings from the server. And for this example, I'm going to use Optimizely as throughout the example. To give a bit of a disclaimer, we don't use Optimizely at Booking. This is just an example to showcase how it's been done. So when you request for experiment settings from the server, you kind of get this JSON object. I've trimmed down a lot of other stuff which I don't need. It could be an array of experiments where in each item it could be an ID which says the status, it's running, it's not running, and the different variations, right? The biggest thing here is the decision of whether the user would see the base or the variant would happen in the app, right? And for that, Optimizely provides an SDK. It's a JavaScript SDK, which they provide. They officially don't support React Native, but this is something which you can also work around. You pass this experiment setting which you get from the server, and you pass it to this instance, the create instance API of Optimizely SDK. And it gives you a nice JavaScript kind of APIs, but there are only two main APIs which would be majoritarily used. One is the activate, and another one is the track. Let's talk about activate, and then we can go into track. In activate, you pass two items, which is the experiment name and the unique identifier. This unique identifier could be different on different levels. Like if the user is not logged in, it could be the device ID. And if the user is logged in, it could be the device ID, the user email ID, and stuff like that, which basically uniquely identifies the user. So you don't want the user to get base and at variant, base and variant for the same users. So it's very important to associate every variant based on identifier so that next time the user visits, the person gets the same variant. So internally, it does very simple things. Like it has its own decision-making logic within the SDK, where you can think of it as a black box where the decision is done there. It tells you whether it's a base or variant based on which experiment, and it knows all the experiment variants, and you return it to the API, return it to the user. And meanwhile, you also make an async call to the server to tell the server that, okay, the user has seen base. Now you can track the user as base, and any more events which the user triggers could be tracked along with this. So to track other events, like let's say now the user gets base and variant, now we need to track whether the user clicks, right? Clicks could be it could be a track. So here you pass an event name and an identifier. So again, this associates again with the experiment name which you passed earlier, so you don't have to worry about whether the user is going to which experiment. It will be tracked automatically. And in the background, it does very simple thing. It just makes an API call to the server to tell whether the user has clicked or not. So then you will have a nice dashboard which says base users clicked so many %, variant users clicked so many %. So in React, how do I do this? I'm going to use this context API where I pass this entire client instance into the create context, and I get this nice provider and consumer, which I'll be using, wrapping my entire app around it. So whenever I want to make a decision whether the user should get a decision on the experiment, I'm going to use the consumer as a consumer of the experiment context, which I created earlier, and use the activate API, which I spoke a little earlier about. Get the decision, and based on the decision, show whether it's a variant or it's a base, right? But there are a few things. Instead of getting the experiment settings, now it gets complicated. Let's say you want to divide the user group equally between multiple languages. English, 50% divided. People visiting from Poland, 50% divided. People visiting from somewhere else, 50% divided. Then their mobile platforms, 50% divided. Then the decision making gets very complicated, right? So it's better to keep the decision making in the server and then get whether the user is in base or variant accordingly directly from the server. So instead of that, instead of getting the experiment setting, you get directly the variant. And by that, I mean you get an object which could be like this, which says experiment 1, the user is in base, experiment 2, it's in variant 1, and so and so. And then your front end, your mobile apps logic would get very easier, where you just look into the object which you received from the server, and you decide based on that. And worst case, you always return base. If it fails, you should always return base. Yeah, and again, you don't have to change any of the things. Here in the context API, you pass the experiment settings, which you got from the API, instead of passing the instance which you created earlier. There could be cases where the internet could be slow. So you got to take that call, like I mentioned before, that you need to check how long would be a splash screen shown. And if it's taking too long, you need to stop that call and go forward. And once the internet becomes reliable, make an actual call and get your experiment settings. So you always have the previous version of your experiment settings. So it's good to fall back to that if you don't get any of these new ones. And if there is no internet, again, you fall back to the old one, or you fall back to the base. But end of the day, the whole goal is to not avoid, to avoid user experiment issues, right? So make sure you don't delay any of the UX just to get these experiments. Okay, so common pitfalls. This is something which is very common, big shot A/B testing, which we call. What it means is that you take an entire website or you take an entire app you redesign and you do an A/B testing, right? When you do an A/B testing, there could be very clear improvement. You would know that, okay, X percentage of bookings happened on variant more than the base, but you don't know exactly why, because there are a lot of things which has changed. So you don't have the next set of experiments. You don't know what would you learn from that. But it could be used in a way where, let's say you have very less users, right? So in that case, you could do it because you can't run smaller experiments, then you'll have very less users, then you can't really make decisions. So it's like it has pros and cons, of course, but you got to be very careful when you make a big changes because you got to know what are your next experiment lines, and then you will understand how the user behavior is. Fringe A/B testing. Okay, this is interesting. So by fringe A/B testing, what I mean is you do A/B testing only a certain part of the site and not the complete website. To give you an example, let's say I run an experiment on my landing page to increase my signups, but I don't do anything further to improve the customer user experience. So the problem here is you're getting more signups, but the user's not really happy about your app. So if you're actually looking to do A/B testing, it's good to do throughout the funnel so that you learn as the user get deeper into the funnel. So because if you're doing only on the landing page, then slowly that's gonna wear off because the user is not really happy after the sign-offs, right? Assumed reproducibility. This is just a fancy way of saying it doesn't necessarily mean what something worked for someone else would work for you, right? If to give you an example, a hamburger icon. A few years ago, I think there was a huge debate around the design community about saying that the users don't really understand the 3 horizontal bars. So the hamburger icon is useless. But we ran an experiment to see whether does our user really care what hamburger icon is. How many of you think A really worked? The hamburger icon was better. Okay, how many of you think menu worked when we actually tell? Okay, very few. And how many of you think it didn't really matter? Oh yeah. Actually, yes, it didn't really matter for our users, but luckily we had few other metrics to understand. What we found out is that the users did not really care whether it's a hamburger or the menu. The kind of user who use booking.com click no matter what, right? But it's not, I'm not saying bad about the user, I'm sorry. But it's not same for everyone else. Like Caffeine Informer, it's a blog website where they ran the similar experiment, but they saw an improvement of 12% on menu, right? So what I'm saying here is it doesn't necessarily mean if something worked for some other company, it would work for you. It could be very different. Like if I run a certain experiment on my landing page, and if I run the same experiment on the book page, the users are expecting something very different on both the pages. So it's not necessarily that the data which I get from both this experiment would be same. So it's as simple as that. So A/B testing when done right. Test everything. By that I mean that you test everything you release and you not go with any gut feeling. So everything is in front of the user and you go from there. Test atomically, which means it really works for us because we have a lot of users and we can check even the smaller impact for in small items. But if it's less users, then it ideally you can test a little bigger than the smaller one. Build tools you can trust. There are actually good tools online like the Optimizely, which I spoke about, but they're really great. But the only thing is that they don't understand the complexity of your problem, of your product. They don't know your product. They don't know your users. They don't know which metric is important for you, right? And also the performance issue. They are actually built for everyone. So what happens here is, as you get deeper into A/B testing, it's good to have your own tool which you could optimize for your product. And yeah, that will be nice to go on with, but it's good to start with the ones which is online already. Question things when you don't understand. I'm really bad with data. Data is difficult. It's terrible. I'm really terrible at it. Luckily, I'm surrounded with some good people who understand what it is. And that helps me ask questions when I don't understand why we are doing certain things. And more you ask questions, more you're stronger the hypothesis happens. and that really helps in getting a stronger result from the experiment. At the end of the day, you got to build your culture around data-driven development. So once you have that culture and everyone believes the idea of data-driven and believes that you got to know what the customer want and build a service accordingly, it's going to be really helpful. It's never going to be something like my word against you, right? At the end of the day, it's about the data. That's all I have about A/B testing, but there is one small thing. I started giving a talk a little over 1 year from now. 1 year, it's been 1.5 years almost I started giving a talk. But before which I used to always think like, wait, I'm doing something which everyone already knows. And maybe I don't have to talk about it or write about it. And yeah, it's something I think everyone here probably would think about. But actually what happened last 2 years ago is that someone reached out to me and said that, okay, you worked on something improving the performance of an app. It's nice if you can write a blog about it. And okay, fine, if someone was interested, I wrote a blog about it, and that became popular, and someone in booking reached out to me and said that you should give a talk about that. And that was my first ever talk, and that was in booking. And then I got introduced to one of the meetup organizers in Amsterdam, and I gave the same talk there. And that led to me giving another lightning talk at React Amsterdam last year. And so what I'm actually saying here is I was thinking that what I'm working on is something very easy and something which everyone knows about, and I should not talk about it. There are better people in the community to talk about. But I think that's not true. Everyone here has something nice to share, something interesting, something much better than what I'm talking about. And I always used to think that if you're on the stage, you know everything about it. But most of the times when I'm talking, I don't know what I'm talking. Well, I actually know what I'm talking, but I don't know completely what I'm talking. So it's okay. It's okay. Just write blogs, talk in your local meetups. Meetup organizers always look for someone to talk in their meetups. There's this nice blog by Dirk Sibbers, which is very nice about this. Actually connected well with me, which says obvious to you, amazing to others, which is exactly what I felt. Right, and I hope I see more speakers in the future conferences, more new speakers, and I look forward to attend your talk. Thank you.